Hello, I'm Seamus McGarvey and I'm happy to be answering your questions today on Cooke Optics TV. You know, working with a gaffer is one of my favourite parts of the job, and it starts with planning really. So I work with a range of gaffers. I've got my favourites that I've worked with for years. But it's really exciting when you get a script and you've got all your own notions of how you want to approach it visually and in lighting terms. You think, well, how do we achieve that? And there are certain conundrums that are difficult to get around. And when I start talking with my gaffer, they usually just bring fantastic solutions. And they're usually quite simple solutions. They work with so many other DPs. They usually bring with them those skills and other people's ways of working into this particular project that we've got in hand. And that's really exciting when I think, well, we'll do this with a balloon. And they go, no, what about if we float a 12 by and bounce into it with the skirt around it? Stuff like that I love, just another eye alongside yours to make sure that you're not going to do something stupid. Working on films really is about being sort of live on your feet, and things come up all the time that are totally spontaneous, that you just think, God, what if we did it that way? And that's what makes it really exciting. And there are a lot of examples of that I can think of off the top of my head, but you've got to be live to it, because sometimes storyboards or previs now can sort of asphyxiate creativity on a set, because you're trying to replicate what has been premeditated, and sometimes that isn't the right way to do it. An actor might go a particular direction. The very architecture of a set that wasn't imagined even or found before the previs was done or storyboard has been made means that it's good to think on your feet, and I like that. I mean, when I did the Hours with Stephen Daldry, he came up with ideas all the time, and there's one in particular that wasn't a spontaneous idea, but it came up while we were making the film, and it ended up being one of the most arresting images of the film. And it was when Julianne Moore's character is in a hotel room and about to swallow some pills and kill herself. The room fills with water as a kind of a reminder of Virginia's drowning. That was fantastically difficult to set up, but it was an idea that just came to Stephen one day while we were shooting. He came in and said, let's do this. And after a little bit of R&D, we did it and shot it. So things like that you embark in a film thinking you've got an idea of what the film's going to look like, and usually things expand and are elaborated upon. I actually shot a film called The Winter Guest. I was very proud of it, but I bumped into a friend, a cameraman that I'd actually worked with as an assistant, Eduardo Serra, and he was shooting a film for Chris Mingus in the middle of Soho, and I spotted the lights and I went over and I saw Eduardo, and I said, Eduardo, my film's opened in the cinemas, do you want to go to see it? And he said, I will watch it. The next day I went back down to Soho where they were shooting, and I said, what did you think? Expecting him to lavish me with praise. And he said, on your next film, you must switch off more lights. So that's something that I've always remembered, to light simply, or at least to start with a single light instead of like creating a football stadium of lights. Usually that's the most effective way of lighting it, and it looks better. A single source. Obviously you want to bring in some fill, but there's a formulaic approach that sometimes involves just routinely adding backlight, which always looks lit to me, a bit of backlight. But light tends to come from a source in a daylight situation, and then it hits off other objects or it bounces around a room. And that's lovely to witness. I spend a lot of my time just sitting, looking at how light falls naturally in any space. I remember Stephen Frears, when I did High Fidelity, I was a great fan of Chris Mingus, who had shot Stephen's first films and a couple of films subsequently. And I said, I was always quizzing Stephen to see if I could find any words of advice from Chris. And he said, well, the only thing that Chris always used to say to me was, put the actors by the window. think about is the motivated source, whether it's a window, a light source, or a lit wall, and bringing somebody in silhouette against it. I mean, there are numerous ways of looking at a room that's just already there and lit, and by removing lights, usually, like offices, for instance, with bland fluorescence throughout, you know, you can create real drama in that apparent dearth of lighting depth by just twisting a couple of bulbs and creating shadow in the foreground and letting the background be lit, or vice versa, you know. And those are things that you can do in an exterior location. Remember about black, you know, negative fill, that can be just brought in, and suddenly you've got shape to a face, whereas before it was just a cloudy ambient wraparound. So all these things are interesting. You don't need a huge HMI package to create shape. I just love reading a script, and usually the sort of photographic heart leaps out at you, you know, a script. The words suggest pictures if you're reading it with a cinematographic mind at work. Images, colours, all suggest themselves to you. They come off the page through you as you think about it, as you read. And I love, it's not just willful experimentation, film by film, to decide to do something different just for the sake of it. It's usually because, well, actually it's because directors, the different directors sort of make me a different cinematographer. And I like that, because you're working with a director. There's an element of collaboration with the cinematography. Most directors I've worked with have had a real strong interest in picture and cinematography itself. So there's always a dialogue between you to find the best way of telling a story through the camera and with light. And I love that. It's very exciting, and it usually leads to diversity in your approach, my approach. And each film has been different as a result of that, because we've been kind of exploring, trying to discover the inherent photographic signature within the film itself. It's like mining for pictures, really.
Someone was actually interested in knowing how the work-life balance is for a cinematographer, because you...
Work-life, well, there's the family calling now. Let me just, hold on to say. No, I'm just going to answer this for 1 second, because
okay, yeah, sure. No problem, no, do it.
They're worried about me.
What, well timed?
Because I've been... Hello, Maria. I'm being...
Hello, Maria.
You're live on TV, and the question was just, how do you balance family life with so here we are. Sorry, I know my phone's been buzzing, and I know you're trying to get hold of me.
You timed that call more perfectly.
Yeah, well done.
So I'll call you when I'm finished. Okay. Say bye-bye to the camera. Bye. She's going to kill me for that, by the way. But Marie's been texting me, what are you doing? What are you... Yeah, she knew I was in Roma seeing Alfonso's film, and she wants to know what it's like, what I think of it. And you know, my phone was going in that last interview, and I haven't had a chance to call. So that's what it's like when I'm on a set. It's so all-consuming. I mean, if you're properly dedicated as a filmmaker, it has to be all-consuming, because you really do devote yourself to it, and all your time, not all your time, you have to leave some time for yourself and for your family, but it does eat up a lot of time. And I think the work suffers if you don't devote the time to it. But by the same token, it can be incredibly destructive to family life, and you know, to relationships, and to your relationship with the kids or whatever. So, but I love what I do so much, and my partner, my family have been very understanding of that. It's not easy, and it does have repercussions, and it's something to think about. People who want to get into the industry, that a lot of sacrifices have to be made for that, you know. But it's ultimately incredibly rewarding, because it's such a great industry, and we're making work, hopefully, that will last. And if it's good work, and the love and the artistry is put in there, then it will mean something to people, and you know, it's not just a job. I don't want to say iceberg, but we're at the start of the evolution of cinematography and filmmaking itself. It is so far to go in potential to explore the making of imagery. It doesn't just stop with a camera and a lens. As we know, you know, technology is expanding it outwards and upwards. So I'm very excited about the future and about what it means to be a cinematographer and what it will mean to be a cinematographer in the future.